The smoke of 100 burning cigars curled into the heavy atmosphere of the galactic gambling den, a place where fortunes were won, lost, and sometimes wagered on things far more valuable than credits. The walls hummed with neon advertisements in 100 alien tongues, flickering holograms promising riches to the desperate and the foolish alike. At the center of this chaos sat K0, an old Zaran alien with mottled blue-gray skin and 4 small, beady eyes that darted around the room. He was a relic of another era, a gambler who had once commanded fleets, whose name had once been whispered with reverence and fear. But time had been unkind. His wealth had dwindled, his influence faded, and his once proud posture now slumped with the weight of 100 bad bets. He was down to his last stake. And the cards had not been kind. Across from him sat a human, an unassuming man named Elias Carter. Unlike the other gamblers, Elias lacked the desperate energy of those who lived by the spin of the wheel. He was calm, collected, his piercing green eyes never betraying his emotions. He played not for the thrill, nor for the rush of power that came from victory. He played because he was simply too damn good at it to lose. The final bet had been called. K0, his hand trembling, looked down at his cards. A losing hand. A crushing defeat. He had nothing left. Nothing but a slow grin, filled with sharp teeth and desperation, stretched across his face. "One more wager," K0 rasped, his voice a whisper of old dust and regret. "I have nothing left, save my daughter." The table fell silent. Even the automated dealer hesitated for a fraction of a second before processing the bet. Elias lifted an eyebrow, but said nothing, waiting. "She is young, healthy, strong. A worthy prize, yes," K0 continued, his voice now a sickly purr. "Surely a human like you could find value in such a wager?" Elias considered the offer, his face unreadable. Finally he nodded. "Deal." The cards fell. The final hand was played. And in a single moment, the fate of K0's daughter was sealed. Elias had won. It was not until later that Elias met the girl he had inadvertently won. She was nothing like he expected. She stood taller than him, lean but powerful, her dark violet eyes burning with unspoken fury. Bands of bioluminescent markings traced delicate patterns across her gray-blue skin, shifting with her emotions. "You," she spat, her voice thick with venom, "are nothing but a thief. A scavenger picking at the bones of a broken man." Elias tilted his head, unimpressed. "I didn't force him to bet. He made his choice." She bared her sharp teeth. "And what will you do with me, human? Sell me? Enslave me?" Elias shook his head. "Neither. You're free to go." That caught her off guard. She took a step back, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. "What?" "I don't deal in people," Elias said simply. "You don't owe me anything. Go live your life." She studied him, searching for deception. Finally she scoffed. "I have nowhere to go. Thanks to you, my father will never take me back. I am disgraced. Abandoned. A prize given to an alien." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Elias sighed. "Then stay. Not as property, but as a person." She glared at him for a long time. And then, with a reluctant nod, she agreed. And so, the human and the alien girl began their uneasy partnership. What started as a gamble became a story neither of them could have predicted. A story of survival, trust, and ultimately, an unlikely friendship that would shake the very foundations of the stars themselves. As the days passed, the tension between them began to thaw. Her name was Lyra, and though she distrusted Elias at first, she had little choice but to travel with him. The galaxy was not kind to those without status, and she had been stripped of hers. Together, they navigated the underbelly of space, dodging bounty hunters, corrupt officials, and remnants of Kaziral's past mistakes. Elias quickly realized that Lyra was no helpless damsel. She was a warrior, trained in combat and strategy, her mind sharp and calculating. She had spent years preparing to take over her father's business, but now, with her former life in ashes, she had to forge a new path. Their journey took them to the far reaches of the Outer Belt, where they uncovered a conspiracy that threatened the balance of power between human and alien factions. It turned out that Kaziral had not only gambled away his daughter, but had also been involved in dealings with a powerful crime syndicate. Now, they were after Elias and Lyra, believing she possessed secrets that could bring down their empire. With enemies closing in, Elias and Lyra were forced to rely on each other in ways they never expected. Their mutual distrust slowly transformed into an unbreakable bond, forged in the fires of survival. Together, they unraveled the mystery of her father's debts, exposed the corruption lurking in the shadows of the galactic trade networks, and fought to carve out a place for themselves in a universe that had already decided their fates. And in the end, Elias realized that Lyra had never been a prize to be won. She was his equal, his ally, perhaps even something more. Because in the end, fate was the greatest gambler of all, and it had placed its bet on them. The galaxy had always been a dangerous place, but never more so than when one found themselves hunted by unseen enemies. Elias and Lyra knew this all too well. The crime syndicate, known as the Void Serpents, had begun their relentless pursuit, tracking them across the outer belt with ruthless efficiency. It wasn't just about the debts Kaziral had incurred. It was something bigger, something Lyra's father had been involved in, something worth killing for. As their ship, the Star's Edge, drifted through the cold void, Elias leaned back in the pilot's chair, eyes flicking between the star maps and Lyra, who was pacing the cockpit. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed in agitation. "They're not just after us because of my father's debts," Lyra finally said. "There's more to this." Elias sighed. "Yeah, I figured as much. Syndicates don't go this hard over a few million credits." Lyra's jaw tightened. "I think my father was involved in something critical to their operations. And now that he's lost everything, they assume I know what it is." Elias regarded her carefully. "Do you?" "No." Elias smirked. "Well, that makes two of us in deep trouble for no damn reason." Before she could respond, the ship's proximity alarm blared. An incoming vessel had locked onto them. "Brace yourself," Elias shouted, yanking the controls. The Star's Edge rolled hard to the left as a barrage of plasma fire streaked past. The enemy ship, a heavily armed Void Serpent interceptor, was on them in an instant. Lyra cursed and leapt into the gunner's seat. "I've got this." The turret hummed to life as she took aim. Elias weaved the ship through the firestorm, narrowly dodging an explosion. Lyra's shots found their mark, blasting through the enemy's shields. The interceptor spun out of control before detonating in a bright flash. Silence settled in the cockpit. Elias let out a slow breath. "We need to find out what your father was hiding." Lyra nodded. "There's one place we can look. A vault on Kaziral's old station." Elias arched an eyebrow. "You didn't think to mention this earlier?" "I wasn't sure it was still intact," she admitted. "It was supposed to be my inheritance before everything." Elias adjusted the course. "Then let's see what your old man left behind." The station, Zaren's remnant, was a shadow of its former glory. Once a hub of trade and power, it now drifted like a ghost in the void. Inside, the air was stale, and the lights flickered weakly. They navigated the derelict corridors until they reached a heavily secured chamber. Lyra entered a series of old access codes, and with a groan of metal, the vault door slid open. Inside were stacks of data drives, old artifacts, and a single, unassuming holodisk. Lyra picked it up and activated it. A hologram of Kazirol flickered to life. His once proud voice now carried a defeated edge. "If you are watching this, then I have lost everything. And you, my daughter, must now bear the burden of my sins." Elias and Lyra exchanged a look as the hologram continued. "I made a deal with the Void Serpents, something beyond money. I gave them access to the coordinates of the celestial engine, an ancient artifact capable of altering the gravitational fabric of entire star systems. A power too great for any one faction to wield." Elias whistled. "Well, that explains why they're after you." Lyra clenched her fists. "And if they get it, they'll hold the entire galaxy hostage." A new determination filled her gaze. "We have to stop them." Elias grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that." The final battle was waged on the barren surface of the Lost World, where the celestial engine was buried. The Void Serpents had beaten them there, their forces already working to unearth the ancient machine. Elias and Lyra infiltrated their ranks, using stolen credentials and disguises to slip through the enemy defenses. But as soon as they reached the core chamber, an all-too-familiar voice greeted them. "Well, well," came a smooth, cold voice. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't show." A towering Zarin male stepped forward, his 4 beady eyes gleaming with triumph. It was Zovar, one of the most feared enforcers of the Void Serpents. "You must be Kazirol's daughter," Zovar mused, circling them. "Pity your father was a fool. But at least he gave us something worthwhile before he fell." Lyra's jaw tightened. "You'll never control the celestial engine." Zovar chuckled. "Oh, I already do." He activated a control panel, and the ground trembled. The ancient machine groaned to life, its core pulsing with energy. Elias shot Lyra a look. "We're running out of time." Lyra lunged, engaging Zovar in brutal combat. Blades clashed, and sparks flew as they fought amidst the ancient ruins. Elias, meanwhile, worked frantically at the console, trying to override the activation sequence. A sudden scream of pain echoed through the chamber. Zovar staggered back, clutching a deep wound in his side. Lyra didn't hesitate. With a final strike, she ended him. Elias slammed a final command into the console, overloading the celestial engine's core. The machine shuddered, its immense power imploding rather than activating. The ground beneath them fractured as they sprinted for their ship. As the world crumbled, the Star's Edge blasted off, escaping just as the celestial engine collapsed in on itself, sealing its secrets forever. Back aboard, Elias slumped into his chair, breathing heavily. Lyra stood beside him, staring at the stars. "Well," Elias said after a long moment, "I think we just changed the course of history." Lyra smirked. "Not bad for a gambler and a prize." Elias chuckled. "You were never a prize, Lyra." She met his gaze, something softer in her expression now. "I know." Silence stretched between them, comfortable and full of possibility. And as they set course for the next adventure, they both knew, against all odds, they had found something far more valuable than fortune or power. They had found each other.